Hello everybody, welcome back to Learning Biology. Today we're on 16.6, and we're going to talk about the voluntary action. So in the previous section,喺之前嗰一節嗰度咧，we have talked about the reflex action，就係一啲反射動作啦。For example, there will be the withdrawal reflex and the knee-jerk reflex. And we're going to learn about them again in this section, alright? But mainly, we're going to focus on what is voluntary action. 究竟乜嘢為之隨意動作呢？ So one definition, very key definition, 好重要嘅就係 you are being conscious. Okay? So you are being under conscious control. Okay? 有意識嘅。Okay? So when we talk about the voluntary action, which part of our brain is related? 邊一個部分係相關嘅呢？ And the answer is cerebrum. Okay? So just a little bit keywords that the book wants you to remember. 你係 you can controlling it yourself. And remember, we use the word automatic. Okay? 自動嘅 and stereotyped. Each and every time it is the same when we describe reflex actions. 得唔得？當我哋講呢個嘅反射動作 reflex action 嗰陣時 then we'll use automatic and stereotyped. And for voluntary action, it is the opposite. Alright? So next, 去到下一個部分啦 we're going to talk about the pathway. 就會講到佢哋嗰個嘅路徑啦 So for the pathway, we need to remember that this part is very, very similar to chapter 15. And we've been repeating this over and over again. 不斷重複緊㗎啦 Okay, so let's go through them very quickly. First one, the receptor. So the receptor detects a stimulus. And after detecting the stimulus, it will give a nerve impulse. The next one, nerve impulse, where does it go to? 去到邊度啊 Going green line 之後 it is going up to the coordinator. Okay, so which part of the coordinator? Which part of the brain? 係腦嘅邊個部分呢 It is going to the sensory area. 當然啦 we are now talking about voluntary action. So therefore, we are talking about cerebrum. Okay, so after going up to the sensory area, and then your brain will do something else. 除咗 sensory area, which two other areas can you remember? 你會記到邊兩個另外嘅 area? The first one will be the association area, and the last one will be the motor area. So the next one, we're going to talk about the association area. Okay, so what is being done in the association area? 喺呢個位置會做咗啲乜嘢呢 So your information is processed, 去處理咗啦 integrated, and therefore you're making decision. 你去製造一度決定啦 Alright, so after you make a decision, so it will go to your motor area, and then the motor area, what will happen? 佢就會去到 the nerve impulse will then transmit to your effector. Okay, so 好快咁樣講一講，就會係 sensory area 啦 of the cerebrum. We'll go to the association area 啦，咁就 process 去 for integration. 最尾啦 after you make a decision 就會去到你嘅 motor area. 而去到 motor area 嗰陣時 it will generate nerve impulse and then you go to your effector. And most of the time we're talking about muscles. 通常都係講緊肌肉嘅。Alright, and eventually the effector will give a response. Okay, so these 5 steps we've been repeating them over and over again, but it is still important. Alright, and we'll talk about them in the last part. 喺最後一個部分啦。So another key point for you is that, remember, voluntary action may involve stimuli or may not involve stimuli. 佢可以係有刺激或者係冇刺激都得嘅。Okay, so for example, what does it mean by stimuli? So when I, for example, if you smell something nice, okay, so when you smell something nice, someone is baking a sausage. 有啲人焗嘅香腸啦。Okay, and then you will try to walk to the kitchen, alright, to find out who is baking or what is being baked. 你會嘗試睇下邊個煮緊嘢啦，或者係邊個係煮緊啲乜嘢啦。Alright, so this one, so just having a sense of smell, 你聞到啲 very good smell. 然之後啦 ，you walk to the kitchen. This is your voluntary action. 你自己決定嘢啦 ，you are being conscious. And there is a stimulus. 係有一個 stimulus 嘅。However, we can also do some voluntary action without stimulus. 亦都可以做一啲隨意嘅動作，冇任何嘅刺激嘅。For example, this is a good example. 咁就同你講啦 ，you take out the biology book to revise. OK， 你拎出你嘅書去溫啦。OK， so this one is another reason, but there may not be any stimulus. OK， 好啦 ，if there is no question, so there is one last sentence. Sorry about that. 就係咩啊？就我哋講緊。So when there is no stimulus, that means do we need the sensory area of the cerebrum? The answer is no. We don't need the sensory area to be involved. 唔需要呢個嘅 sensory area 啦，去包含在內嘅。And when there is no senses, when there is no information, do we need association area to analyze? 冇任何刺激嘅情況之下，我哋需唔需要 association area 去幫我哋分析 to make decision for us? The answer is also no. So therefore, we are going to use the motor area. Okay? So the nerve impulse will be transmitted. 佢就會直接啦，係 from the motor area of the cerebrum to your effector. 咁就去到我哋嘅效應器嗰度啦，去到我哋嘅肌肉嗰度啦。Alright? Okay, so this is the purple page I'm talking about. So this page may be quite boring, but as you can see, it carries a lot of marks. 咁就會有好多嘅分數啦。Okay, so the first one, it is quite easy and you can tell me immediately. Okay, 咁就 first one 啦，係 pick up glass of hot water. 一杯熱水啦 consciously. So since we are talking about consciously, so the answer is, what kind of action is it? 係 voluntary action 定 involuntary action 呢？ So the answer is, it is a voluntary action. Okay, but then, first one, again, the question is there a stimulus? 有冇任何 stimulus? The answer is no. Okay, so when there is no stimulus, 冇任何刺激啦。So we don't need sensory area or association area. 兩個 area 都唔需要嘅 and we start from motor area. Okay? So we can think about the answer. So the motor area will give out will generate the nerve impulses. 佢第一步啦，佢會 generate 呢啲嘅，去產生呢啲嘅 nerve impulses. 好啦，產生完 nerve impulse 喎 so where do they go to? 佢哋去到邊啊？ So they will go to, so just answer the question, alright? So they will go through 呢個嘅 motor neuron 啦 and the answer is, when you look back up, you'll see that the motor neuron, 咁就係呢度慢落嚟啦 it will go down to neuron 4 and then eventually it will go down to your arm muscle, so neuron 3, eventually. Okay? 所以咧，你會見到啦 the nerve impulse will travel 咁就 along 呢一個嘅 motor neuron 啦，咁就 including neuron 4 and neuron 3 in the diagram above 喺以上嗰幅圖嚟講。And then eventually it will go to the effector. 今次 where is the effector? It is the arm muscle 係我哋嘅手部肌肉啦。Okay? So this last sentence, it is quite important, so make sure you can also remember this. 咁記到啦。咁就我哋會講到啦 when it goes to the arm muscle, it will contract. 係當 what goes to the arm muscle 啊 the answer is very easy. 咁就 nerve impulse 啊。So usually, 通常啊 most of the time, when nerve impulse reaches a place, 去到某一個地方嗰陣時 that place, that effector will contract, 而唔係 relax 嘅 most of the time. Okay? So next part, 去到下一個部分啦。So when we touch the glass of hot water, withdraw his hand immediately. So this word is very familiar. 好明顯 it is this time, is it a conscious action? 係咪一個有意識嘅動作呢？ The answer is no. It is the withdrawal reflex. OK? 佢今次係呢個嘅反射嚟嘅，係退縮反射啦。OK? So next one, we are going to look at this diagram again. So how does the reflex action work? 點樣去發生嘅呢？ And this time, there is a stimulus. 今次係會有一個刺激嘅。So stimulus, as you can see, it tells you 係呢個 receptor in skin. So when we talk about this receptor, it is better if you know that this is the thermal receptor. 係一個溫度嘅感受器啦 because we are talking about the hot water. Okay? So there is this stimulus, 就係 the receptor in the skin detect 呢一個嘅 hot surface 啦，或者有 high temperature 啦，係 from the hot water. 所以啦，佢就會 generate 咗 nerve impulse, and then it will go through neuron 1. 然後去到邊啊? Does it go to neuron 2? And the answer is yes. This time it doesn't go to neuron 4. Okay? It will go to neuron 2, pass through neuron 2, which is the interneuron. 好啦, and then it will go to neuron 3, to your arm muscle, to the effector, 去到我哋嗰個效應器啦. And then when the nerve impulse is transmitted to the arm muscle will contract, 佢就會收縮啦. And your hand will withdraw from the hot water. Okay? 但係咁樣答, is it enough? Okay? Have we finished answering your question? The answer is not really. Okay? 咁睇睇咯。Okay? So 睇下漏咗啲乜嘢啦。So first one, as you can see, 佢就話啦 receptor in the skin, 佢就會 stimulated 啦. So what are they stimulated by? 佢哋係 stimulated by 呢個 high temperature of 呢個 water 嘅。Okay? 好啦，然之後啦 therefore they generate nerve impulse. 然後 they travel along neuron 1, 咁就去到我哋嘅 spinal cord. Okay? 就去到我哋 spinal cord 先嘅。然後啦，當然啦 neuron 2, which is the interneuron, 佢就 relay, 或者我哋可以用另外一隻字 another word is transmit 呢個 nerve impulse 去到 neuron 3, the motor neuron. Okay? So one simple note, 一個好小心好簡單嘅一個提示啦 is that please do not just put down sensory neuron, motor neuron, interneuron. Okay? Because you need to base on the diagram, refer to the diagram. 根據幅圖嘅話咧，你應該答翻我係 neuron 1, 2定係3啦。Okay? So lastly, it will go travel along 呢一個嘅 neuron 3，最尾啦就 reach 咗呢個 arm muscle， 去到我哋嘅 effector 嗰度啦。And the arm muscle receive 咗呢一個 nerve impulse， 佢就會 contract and withdraw 我哋嘅 hand 嘅。So these are all the marks. Alright? So if your memory is good enough, 我想上去再講多少少嘢啊。So if your memory is good enough, you remember that when we talked about the withdrawal reflex earlier, 當我哋講到呢個退縮反射之前嗰陣時咧 so you know that there is another neuron going up to the brain. Okay? 佢會另外一條嘅 nerve impulse 會上咗腦嘅。And that nerve impulse is trying to give us the sense of feeling hot or sense of painfulness. Alright? 你可能會覺得好熱啦，或者覺得好痛啦。Okay, but why is that nervous pathway? 點解嗰個神經呢個嘅路線 Why is that nervous pathway not mentioned in here in the 5 marks? 點解冇咧? Because look at the question once again carefully. Okay? So it is just asking you to describe the nervous pathway involved in the following events. Okay? So look at it, when you look at the question, 就會望到啦 it is only talking about the withdrawal reflex. 淨係講佢個退縮反射 and he doesn't mention anything talking about feeling hot or feeling painful. 得唔得? Okay? So keep this in mind. Okay? 好啦 if there is no question, 咁我哋去到 the last part of this section. Okay? So this page mainly talks about some English stuff. So it's like how to use firstly, then after that, and then eventually things like that. Okay? So I'm not going to talk about that here or even in class. Okay? 好啦 the last part. I want you to go to page the last page of this section. 咁就去呢一節嘅最後一頁啦。And this part, please put a star over here. So we're going to compare 去比較返啦 the reflex action and the voluntary action. 係呢個反射動作啦，同埋呢個嘅隨意動作嘅。Okay, so be careful about the word. So starting from the first one, okay, so this table is very, very important, okay, in your DSE or in your exam whatsoever, okay. So the first one, 我哋就會講到啦。when we talk about the reflex action, 我哋就會講啦 it is automatic, 佢係自動嘅 okay. So we don't use the word, 我哋唔會用到隻字 called unconscious. So it's not being unconscious, okay. 我哋會用 automatic 嘅 so it will just do it itself, 佢會自動幫咁樣做啦。However, voluntary action, 我哋就會講佢係 conscious 嘅，佢係 under conscious control 啦。Reflex action 佢係 inborn 天生嘅。But voluntary action, you can train it. Okay? 你可以控制佢咧 you can control it, you can train it. 你可以訓練佢嘅。Okay? So not inborn. And then reflex action, stereotyped. Each and every time, always the same. 但係啦 voluntary action, not the same. So you like to be smacked by one of your friends, but you don't like to be smacked by another friend. OK， 你會中意俾一個人冚啦，未必會中意俾所有人冚嘅。Alright, and then for the nervous pathway， 即係佢哋行嗰條路線啦。So for the reflex action, it is definitely shorter， 會短啲嘅 ，because it needs to be faster, right? The reaction needs to be faster， 要快啲嘅。So this one involves the spinal cord。OK， 或者啦 ，maximum 最多只會係咩啊？你嘅 medulla oblongata。So medulla oblongata is the reflex center， 佢係一個反射中心、反射中樞嚟嘅。Alright, but then we do not involve the cerebrum or the cerebellum. OK， 其實 cerebellum is definitely not involved in either of these actions， 係任何一個 action 啦，都唔會包括我哋小腦噶啦。Alright, but for voluntary action, we do not talk about the spinal cord or medulla oblongata. We talk about it involves the cerebrum. 佢淨係會俾個大腦控制嘅啫。Alright, and your reflex action needs a stimulus. 佢需要有一個 stimulus 嘅。For voluntary action, there can be a stimulus, just like the example I gave earlier. If you smell the scent of sausage, 你聞到有啲香腸味啦。Or you can just open the biology book to study yourself. 得唔得？ Okay, so you may not need a stimulus. There can be a stimulus or not. Alright? 好啦，最尾啦 we are going to talk about the speed. The reaction speed, I've just mentioned it. For reflex action, 係 always fast 嘅。但係 for voluntary action, it is comparatively 係相對地 comparatively 係相對地啦 slower. Alright? So that's all for this video, okay? And same as earlier, so I'll give you 5 seconds and you can pause the video and then do the following checkpoints yourself. Sorry. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, 嚟咯喎。因為就問你啦 ，which one cannot be controlled voluntarily？ 嚟，邊一個係唔能夠有意識咁控制嘅咧 ？Blinking, of course you can blink now. Breathing, you can breathe harder. You can breathe softer now. Drinking water, drinking alcohol, drinking chocolate. Okay, so you can also drink them anytime. A, C, and D, they are voluntary actions. They can be voluntary actions. 得唔得？ But then we cannot control our heartbeat, so the answer is B. Alright, for the last question, which one is incorrect? So please pay attention here. Okay, so of course there is the table above and you can compare with it. 你可以用返上面嗰幅個圖表啦，然後去作出一個比較啦。But then try to think about it. Voluntary action. Look at the left-hand side first. All voluntary actions involve the brain. Yes or no? The answer is yes, because they are controlled by cerebrum. 好啦，而第二個咯 ，may not involve a stimulus. The answer is also yes, 佢係 may not 啫。Okay? Number 3, we are conscious. The answer is also yes. 3 of them is correct. But then let's look at the reflex action. 睇一睇個反射動作啦。So none of them involve the brain. The answer is no. It involves the spinal cord. Okay? But is spinal cord a part of the brain? 呢個我哋嘅脊髓係咪呢個腦部嘅一部分啊？ The answer is no. Okay? But remember, there is the reflex center. 我哋會有一個反射中樞咯。That name is medulla oblongata. Alright? So A or number 1 is wrong. Okay? For reflex action, number 2. 佢就話啦 always involve a stimulus. The answer is yes. Okay? So number 2 is correct. And then number 3. So we are conscious of them for voluntary action. And for reflex action, we are not conscious of them. We are unconscious. The answer is no. 我哋唔係 unconscious. Remember this word very carefully. We are not being unconscious. 唔係冇意識. Because you can still feel it. So remember the withdrawal reflex. Remember the knee-jerk reflex. You can still feel it. Okay? Only later. 係遲咗啫. Okay? But you can still feel it. So it is still conscious. But how do we use the word? 點樣用嗰個字呢? We say that it is automatic. The reaction is automatic. 係自動嘅. 得唔得? So the answer is boy. 1 and 3. Okay, so that's all for this video, and I'll see you in the next one, talking about the last part of this chapter, about the endocrine system. Okay, so see you in the next video, and bye-bye.